Hey friends, it's Kenya Stump here with Root Rise Yoga, and I'd like to offer you today a short practice, 15-20 minutes in length. It's really centered on integrating our breath and our core with some fluid movement. It was inspired by um, what many of us know as a sun salute. Uh, and I've taken a little variation on that I would like to offer you using 2 blocks and blankets and a chair if that's something that feels comfortable for you today. We will be on our knees, but know that anything that we do on our knees can be done standing. And when we drop down to the blocks, that can be done standing with the use of a chair. And we'll go through all of that as we progress. So through the flow or the fluid movements. I'm using 4 blankets and 2 blocks. You can use blankets and bolsters, seat cushions, whatever you have available that can just elevate you some when you're sitting. And then also for blocks, stack of books, something that's really stable, that doesn't slide around, can be used as well. And know too, my dog is with me today, so you may hear my dog Betsy come over. Sometimes she likes to practice as well. So let's get started. Let's come to a seated position of your choice. I'm choosing a cross-legged position today. I'm elevated on 4 blankets actually. I have my 2 blocks on the lowest level where my knees can rest on the block. If this isn't comfortable for you today, this is a great seated position as well. Legs apart may be an option, or legs straight out with the blocks supporting under the knees. I encourage you to explore a seated position that feels comfortable for you today. You may also be on your knees. That may be an option instead of sitting, but to be on our knees with a block or a couple of blocks behind us, and even a block and a blanket. This is another sitting option available to us today. So coming back to your seated position, I'm going to move the flesh back and kind of get my sitting bones, do a little shimmy and get my sitting bones grounded. Take a sounded exhale. Exhale completely, and the inhale will always take care of itself. I'm going to check in with my shoulders. Maybe do a little movement and settle in. And we're just taking a few natural breaths to your rhythm to check in what you're bringing today to your mat. Eyes open or closed. Open, you may focus on a point ahead of you to help come internal and step into the breath. Eyes closed, you can just step into your breath. Check in to see Kind of taking that internal temperature. Maybe it's been a hectic day, maybe you're late getting started, maybe this is just lunch and you want to take a break. So we'll start by linking some arm movements to our breath. Let's experiment first by placing our hands on our hip bones, these bony hip points. Exhale with a sounding whoosh. Let's notice any sensations in our lower abdomen as we whoosh. And maybe you notice some brightening of your core, your deep transverse abdominals, the hip points cinched together on that sounded exhale. We'll come back to that throughout our practice today. So on the inhale, exhale, inhale, arms come up, palms face forward, then palms come together at a level that's comfortable for your shoulders. Exhale through center, press the palms together, notice any brightening of your core as you activate the front body. With hands in prayer position, we're now going to take an inhale. On the exhale, turn to the left or whatever side you choose. Think about tucking that back shoulder blade down as the front shoulder blade rotates around. Engaging, brightening up your core as we turn. Inhale. Exhale, other side. Breathe here in this turn. Observe how your core supports you in this twisted position. Maybe check in with your sit bones to see how one may be lighter or heavier than the other. And you can experiment with shifting and see how that changes your twist. And inhale will come to center. Inhale or exhale, then inhale. Right hand comes overhead as you lean to the left. Arms come down to your blanket, bolster, or your mat. Fingertips down. Extending through the side body, out and over. Head can be down, forward, or up. Your choice. Breathing, extending out through the side body, all the way from the hip, all the way up through the fingertips. Inhale to center, arms come up, or to a height or cactus that is good for your shoulders today. Other side, fingertips descend. Arm extends over, fingers are active on the extended hands. Grounding through that sit bone. Thinking about your core being alive and engaged. Breathing here. Inhale, come to center. Exhale, prayer, hands. So let's take a few moments, a few pauses, just to check in to see how our bodies are feeling with that movement. We did a twist and some side body stretching. Before we come to our knees, let's extend our legs out if your legs have been crossed and just do a little shake. Let's rotate our ankles one way, the other. Play with activating your feet, toes wide, toes squinched up, flexed, and pointed, and just give our legs a little bit of a shake. Now let's transition to our more fluid movement practice, where we're going to really focus today on how our breath influences our core, how our core influences our breath, and how we can link all of that to some movement today and see how our bodies respond, how our mind responds, and overall what kind of are the residual effects of that kind of core integrated breath movement practice. So it's a great time to experiment today. I'd encourage you, as I always do, these are always choices. Make choices that really empower you today to feel more joy, ease, and comfort. And we'll explore a variety of options that can hopefully, at the end of the practice, you feel more joy, ease, and comfort as you'll go about your day today. So let's get started with that. I'm going to come down, have a base blanket down for my knees. And the tops of my feet are on my blanket. They're active, my toes are active, pressing down. Shoulder blades up, down, and back. Kind of just doing that sounded breath to remind my core to my hip points and my transverse abdominals to really activate and aliven to support my back during this practice. Inhale, arms up. Mine are at shoulder level. If your shoulders are comfortable, you can come up to where your arms are beside your ears. And that's on an inhale. Exhale, we'll hinge forward, swoop our hands back. Inhale up, exhale, down and back. And let's explore in this movement, as we hinge forward, the core engagement of the exhale that stabilizes us in a neutral spine as we've hinged forward. Up with the inhale, core engagement, hinging forward, neutral spine. Let's come back to our neutral kneeling position. Palms can be forward or to your side. Check in with your shoulders. And check in to see how your energy is after that kind of fluid movement with our breath, core integrated, as we rise up, fold forward, rise up, fold forward. All right, now we're going to transition into the second phase of our fluid movement practice. I'm going to scoot my blanket back a bit. And I'm going to use 2 blocks. They're on the lowest level, right in front of me. Scoot these blankets back. And I'm going to come down to a forearm tabletop position. You can also do this with a chair. If you're standing, another option would be, let's get a chair. You have a chair, and let's say we did our standing practice and we would come to forearms on our chair, knees slightly bent. And this could be our forearm tabletop option if you've been standing. And I realize when I stand, it cuts off my head, so apologies for that. This was designed to get all of me in the kneeling position, not standing. So here we are kneeling. Be sure if you have blocks or whatever you're using to bring the ground up to you, that they're not movable. You don't want them to slide out from underneath you. An option for that, if that happens, is you can wrap your mat over your blocks, really cinch them up there, and come down to your forearms that way. My blocks are pretty stable on my mat, not prone to movement. So I've got my knees under my hips. They can also be a little wider if that's more comfortable to you. Play with your toes. Normally one of these ways feels more comfortable than the other one. And maybe you play with toes up and then toes down and see how that experience feels in your body. My knees are under my hips. My forearms and elbows are on my blocks. My elbows are about a little bit wider actually than my shoulders because I like that. So play with, do you want them in under your shoulders, hands this way? You can have hands in prayer where your elbows go a little out. You can also interlace the fingers and try that position. So play with your hand position. I like palms together, but it allows me to press my palms together and get that front body engagement. So I have my forearms on the block, palms are pressing together, forearms are pressing down into the block, and on an inhale, cow, starting at the base of the spine, your sacrum, your tailbone. Exhale, curl up into cat. Inhale, cow. And we're just doing our cat cows. I have the the tops of my feet pressing into the ground. And find a rhythm that feels natural to you today with your natural breath. And when you're ready, come back to neutral. We'll take an inhale, exhale here. And I'm going to change my hands for this. I like a more, what I call gripping the egg posture with my hands, where my fingers are interlaced, thumbs are up. My pinky fingers are nesting, and I'm kind of imagining I'm holding an egg gently. And I'm going to have some downward pressure into my blocks, really ground down, curl my toes, and lift up, knees bent, into a forearm down dog. Breathing into my back body, my low ribs, middle ribs expand under my armpits. Finally, the breath flows all up, or it may today. Reach a pinnacle at your collarbones. And then exhale. Imagine your sit bones are rising up to the ceiling, spreading wide. Engagement of your forearms. Inhale. We'll come down to our table. Check in with that. Maybe press back into a wide-legged child's pose, arms extended. An option here is to explore your breath movement in your back body, from the low lungs, mid lungs, up through the armpits and collarbones, and just explore where you are today. No judgment. Leave your judgment at the door as you come to your practice today. Come as you are, use what you have, do what you can. So we just did our down dog. We'll maybe do a few cat-cows. And then for our plank version, we can look at either extending one leg back and lifting. Option. Second leg back, abdominal engagement, lift to hip height. We can also scoot our knees back and shift our hips forward. Front of the feet press down in the mat into this forearm plank variation. Imagine squeezing your blocks together and pushing the mat forward with your forearms. And the last variation for our plank would be both toes back, forearms pressed down, together and forward, core is engaged, gaze forward for a forearm plank. So we have three progressions for you to play with and choose from today on our plank variation. We're still on our forearms, and after we've done that, we'll come to some stillness, and then we'll also try another child's pose. So arms can be on blocks, head down. Another option for child's pose is I like to have a blanket on my heels so I can press back. Elbows could be down. Forehead could be stacked on your fists or arms to your side. So let's breathe here. Just some natural breaths. We'll come back up, transition to our seated position. And I'm now only on one blanket, but my hips are still elevated above, my pelvis is still elevated slightly above my knees to allow my pelvis to be open to the breath. So we're just going to check in. How do we feel before and after? And check in that you haven't, sometimes my anterior tilt, I tend to arch a bit. So every once in a while I have to check in and just get on top of my sit bones, check back in with my shoulder blades. Sometimes it's possible I could slump. You can also do a few cat-cows here. Come to stillness. We'll check in with our breath. And we'll do a brief bottom-up body scan. Check in with your feet. Moving up to our knees, hips, sit bones and pelvis. Moving up through our torso. Remembering that sounded exhale. Checking in with our shoulders, shoulder blades, sides of the neck, the bones behind of the ear. Imagine them reaching up. We'll go down through our right arm, right fingers, left arm, left fingers. An option after this would be to take a side lying position or your supported constructive rest pose or a resting position of your choice and spend a few minutes in quiet meditation, just checking in with your natural breath. I want to thank you all for practicing with me today. It's been a joy to offer you this practice. Thank you for coming to your mat, and thank you for practicing today in whatever way that looked like today, knowing that even if all you did was to come and breathe, that was a great practice. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.